Long-haul truckers. What's the creepiest, most paranormal thing you've seen on the road at night? A good friend of mine told me this story years ago. He is the stereotypical old big bad trucker. I've seen some weird stuff with him while driving in South Texas along the border. He never batted an eye, but while telling me the story, he had goosebumps and a concerned expression, which, from this guy, is about the equivalent of a trembling lip and shit-stained pants. I'll tell the story in the first person as he told it to me. Years ago, in the late 90s, I was on my way from the house, which was Central Texas, heading to Laredo to pick up a load. It was early morning, around 4 or 5. I had just come off a string of days at home, so I know I wasn't tired. I'm on one of those 2-lane winding roads in the absolute middle of nowhere, when I see something on the side of the road at the edge of my high beams. At first, I just thought it was roadkill, as is usually the case. As I get closer, I see that it is roadkill, and there's someone crouching over the deer carcass. I remember thinking either this guy's taking the antlers as a trophy, or he's fucking sick. As I got closer, still I can now see that this guy's eating the deer. He's pulling chunks of meat from the stomach and bringing them up to his face. At this point, he stops mid-motion and looks up at me. Not at my truck, but at me. He/it stands up, and that's when I see it's huge, brown, and covered in hair. I remember thinking at this point, oh fuck. This thing is standing on the tiny shoulder looking at me. By this point, maybe 3 seconds have passed and I'm about to the point in the road he's standing at. I didn't even think of stopping. In fact, I'm starting to lay on it and get the hell out of there. As I'm passing it, it's looking at me. Again, not at the truck. It's looking through the driver's side windshield at me. He obviously has the intelligence to know that there's a driver in here and knows where I'm sitting. As I start to pass him, I can still see its head above the hood of an old needle-nose Pete, which is an old truck design where the hood goes straight out from the windshield, known for being tall and difficult to see around. This thing is giant. I remember seeing what looked like human intelligence in its eyes. It scares the shit out of me. Sorry for the wall of text, but it's a story worth sharing though. This is my father's story, and he wasn't a long-haul trucker, but rather an 18-year-old gas station attendant in the late 70s, and without a certain long-haul trucker, I probably wouldn't be here. The gas station was 24 hours, and my dad was the only one working the night shift, around 11 to 7, I think. A guy comes in and just gives him the creeps. Seems sketchy. He was wearing a tight jacket and pants, and you could tell he had something in his pants under the jacket. It was during the summer and was warm, so why is he wearing a jacket to begin with? It was later confirmed that he was on drugs. A lot of truck drivers used the station as it was the only one open 24 hours for a long stretch of the highway. They also had a big lot where they would let truckers park and sleep or take a break. On this night, at this time, it was just my dad, the sketchy dude, and one trucker in there he kind of knew. As in, this person came in frequent enough to be conversational with, and asked if he'd stay in the station and hang out until the sketchy dude left. Well, after looking at the stocked shelves for several minutes while sneaking peeks at my dad behind the counter, the sketchy guy eventually looked fed up and got into his blue car and sped off. Cool trucker guy hung out with my dad a little longer until another couple of guys came in to use the booths they had to eat a sandwich. I should also point out that this was pretty middle of nowhere, rural southeast United States and the 1970s. CB and landline was it. My dad only had a landline in the store, and he didn't have any protection or a weapon of any kind. So the hours passed and my dad had shaken off the paranoia. when all of a sudden, this guy in a car comes hauling ass into the lot, jumps out, and sprints into the store hollering he needs a phone. He didn't have a CB, nor did he see a phone at the other station. He also wasn't familiar with the area, and my dad's station was the first place he found. This guy calls 911 to report that he had walked in on a gas station 40 miles back, which was the next closest station, to find the attendant shot and dead. No one else was around. And the only other piece of information is that a blue car was speeding out of the lot when the trucker pulled in. Apparently, they eventually apprehend the guy in the blue car. My dad confirms it was the sketchy dude from earlier in the night, and they charge him with murder and armed robbery. To the long-haul trucker who waited around with my dad that night, thanks, and hope you're keeping it real. Also, worth adding that apparently sketchy guy in the blue car was already a bad apple who was either being looked for or on probation or something. He was already in the system. My dad has several stories, from hauling logs in Idaho and driving trucks through Utah and Nevada. My favorite is actually just from his pickup going through Utah. He said there was a light keeping pace with him out in the desert on a moonless night. It kept pace for a minute before it disappeared and his truck turned off. He stopped and turned it on and pulled off at the next diner. The folks in the diner called it a common occurrence. The creepiest is when he was hauling logs in Idaho and was coming down from near Coeur d'Alene area during a snowy winter night. He was putting on chains before heading down steep grade and said all of the hair stood up on his body. It felt like there was something watching him. Halfway down the switchbacks, he saw a large figure standing on a 20-foot tall embankment. As he got closer, it jumped down and the shoulders were as tall as the cab. In a single bound, it leaped down and then leaped over to the side of the embankment. At the time, he thought it was a Sasquatch. Now he says it was probably a demon trying to make him crash. He didn't stop to remove the chains until he was well away from the mountain. My dad has told me this story a couple of times, and each time it always kind of weirds me out. He's not a trucker, but when he was in the military one night, him and a buddy went out to get food. About halfway into their drive down a dark road, my dad and his buddy noticed a woman in a red dress with black hair walking. My dad and his buddy found it odd because it didn't seem safe and it wasn't that warm. My dad said deep down he knew stopping was a bad idea, and so they drove by a little more slowly to get a glimpse to see if she needed help. As they drove by, my dad and his friend both swear she has no face. Instead, there was just a black hole, as if she had been in a wreck and her face was taken off. It freaked them both out so badly, my dad floored it, and when they stopped to eat, both of them agreed that they saw the same thing. Come to find out, a woman had been killed earlier that year in an accident. They were talking about it when a stranger told them the sightings of the woman were actually common. I'm not one to believe in the paranormal, but this story is still kind of weird. Okay, so here is a spook for you, and to this day I still have no idea what the F happened. So I was in the VA/MD area, and had a lot of work-related sites ranging from downtown Baltimore to Virginia Beach and all around. Friday wrapped up, and I hit the road to some social arrangements I had made for the weekend. I spent the weekend with friends out in various parts of VA, got dragged off to other places even further out, the usual weekend fun times. It's late Sunday night when I have to leave, or I'm not going to be able to get home in time to start my, thankfully late afternoon, Monday. I'm fully rested, I didn't do any drinking, and I'm not into drugs. I'm on the highway at about 3 a.m, in the middle of bumfuck nowhere between Roanoke and DC. Absolutely nobody around. I'm cruising along in the left lane simply because nobody else is around. I haven't seen any headlights for the past hour, no tail lights either, not even road lamps. It's dark, it's mildly damp, it's foggy. I have the music up, I'm feeling good, and all is fine. And then I just happen to look to the left. and there is a dog barking at me, a German Shepherd, in a car passenger seat, somewhat blue glow from the instruments inside the car, and it's got its face to the window and it's barking its head off at me. I get a good hard look at it too, because at first my brain is not registering that it's a cop car. I'm doing 90 plus in a 75. I promptly have the oh shit moment when the dog, the instruments, the white Crown Vic / light bar all click in my brain after a second hard look. I put my foot on the brakes and start slowing down, hard but safe, to pull over. I even put my blinker on to start shifting lanes over to the right to pull over, because, wait, there is no shoulder on the left side of this road. I look back to my left, where there is still no shoulder or room for another car, and it's just gone. No trace. I slammed my brakes and stopped in the middle of the fucking highway, flipped on all my light bars, and even looked around with my handheld spot. There was nothing. No tail lights, no headlights, no engine sounds, nothing. There are no other tire marks in the damp but mine, and I can see for a nice long distance both ways too. Nothing. My vehicle had great visibility and a lot of extra lighting. It was an off-road SUV with the trimmings. There is no possible way somebody pulled a sneaky, let alone drove that fast on wet-sloped grass and rocks on my left side. So yep, there you have it. Ghost cop and his dog did not like me speeding, apparently. My dad told me and my brothers this story when we were growing up, and it's always stuck with me, particularly on long drives when I'm feeling a bit sleepy. The first time I remember hearing it was after I asked him if angels were real. I was probably 7 or 8 years old. He drove trucks decades ago, before I was born and before labour laws around limits and brakes were more standard. I'm assuming it's a bit different now. He'd fairly regularly accept calls that would extend his shift to where he was driving 24, 36 hours or more without a break, longer than a quick bathroom or a fast food stop. My dad has a pretty mathematical brain. He's the type to make up logic puzzles out of something totally mundane just for fun. Whenever we were driving around town, he'd regularly ask me things like how long would it take us to get from home to the store if we were going 30 miles per hour but had to stop 5 minutes in the middle because a family of kittens were crossing the road, etc. He'd come up with similar equations for himself while he was driving solo that involved things he was seeing, like the odometer, mileage markers, the time, and then he could test his speed based on the equation, etc. One night, after having already driven a particularly long day, he noticed his eyes getting droopier, and the whole roll down the window and blast the music up thing didn't seem to be helping much. It was a rainy night on a pretty windy mountain road, without a shoulder to pull over safely, so he started doing those logic games out loud to keep alert and awake. He was saying something to the effect of, "I'm just past mile marker 146, so what time will it be when I reach 200 if I'm going 55 miles per hour?" Then he closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and felt his head do the nod jerk thing, which woke him up with a gasp. He opened his eyes to see he was driving straight towards mile marker 158, which would have sent his whole truck tumbling down a random-ass mountain ravine. He was able to correct the course safely back, but it was a matter of seconds between that reality and certain death. He insists to this day that he slept through 12 miles of windy mountain road, going 60 plus miles per hour, only to wake up right at the last moment between life and death. The story usually ends with him tearing up saying, "I don't know if there's angels, but I know there's something bigger going on in this universe than our human brains have been able to understand yet. If I wouldn't have woken up right when I did, you kids wouldn't be here today, and that's something that feels pretty close to spiritual." Not a trucker, but I've driven cross-country a few times and have 2 freaky things that have happened. First, in the middle of the night with a buddy, and we pulled off to the side of the road of a highway to take a piss and switch drivers. Nobody else was around on the road. I walked to the side, pitch black, whip it out and start to pee. My buddy is just stretching his back or whatever. I heard something in the woods shake a tree. No other way to describe it. A tree about 30 feet away shook. Then I hear something big crashing through the woods, coming straight for us in the car. My buddy and I don't even say anything. He dives in the driver's side and I jump through the passenger window, pants still down. He floors it out of there, legs and pants dangling outside. Never did see anything in the rearview mirror, but there was something out there coming at us. My buddy likes to say he heard me stop peeing when that tree shook. Second, I was solo somewhere in West Virginia, again, middle of the night. I got off an exit, one of those long, curvy ones. I saw lights before I got off and assumed it was exit stuff or maybe even construction. I get to the exits and it's not construction. It's a ton of Army or National Guard guys. The exit was lit up, brighter than daytime. So many lights sitting up pointing everywhere. The Army guys were completely decked out, gas masks on and assault rifles. They were sprinting around. One guy at the corner was frantically waving me through to get back on the highway. I gunned it out of there, looked in the news later and didn't see anything. No idea what was going on that night. I was at a truck stop in Arizona. I was pulling through the fuel island, and right as I was about to leave, 15 cop cars came flying into the parking lot with a SWAT van. They surrounded a truck that was already parked for the night. I heard later that the driver had lost a tire or something off his trailer, and it had killed a guy on the side of the road. Don't know how true that story was, but it sounded possible. At the old Flying J in El Paso, I had pulled through the fuel island and was filling out logs and whatnot after filling up when someone started screaming help on the CB. It's not unusual to hear kids fucking around or whatever, but this sounded like a full-grown man and did not sound fake. It only happens for about 15 to 20 seconds and then silence. Some people started asking the guy where he was, but never got a response. Suddenly, another big rig in the parking lot starts to take off right as a couple of cop cars pull into the truck parking area. The big rig takes out a smaller sign and then jumps a curb out into the service road for I-10. Turns out, a student got pissed at his instructor and stabbed him before leading the cops on a short, high-speed chase. Okay, so I have 3 stories. 1, the creepiest. 2, paranormal. And 3, just batshit crazy. So the creepiest. I was driving the I-30 through Texas and Arkansas. I would see what looked like animals/faces popping out of the bushes, but longer than a glance proved nothing there. They had just paved the highway and there was hardly any traffic. I was dead tired, it was super dark. Highway hypnosis, I suppose. Second story, paranormal. When I went to local driving, my route ran near an air reserve base in Indiana, so you'd see planes and helicopters pretty often. One night at about 2 a.m., I was headed to pick up another load when I saw a bright green light in the corner of my windshield. It was too low to be an aircraft. It moved pretty slowly, then darted, and I lost sight of it behind some trees I drove by. Typical, I saw a UFO shit, but I still think it was just a helicopter or a jet that I saw at the perfect angle that turned after a takeoff. The jet pilots have broken the sound barrier over town a couple times in the past, so a jet flying abnormally isn't necessarily out of the realm of possibility. 3, just batshit crazy. Driving south on I-75 in the winter in Ohio, I witnessed a compact car, like a Cobalt or similar, get on the on-ramp to merge into I-75 north and lost control. They went sideways, fell at least 6 feet off the ramp and onto the shoulder of the interstate landing on all 4 wheels, spun 360 degrees, and then proceeded to merge into traffic like it was nothing. Blew my mind. The CB radio was going fucking nuts for about 5 minutes. Holy shit, who else just saw that, etc. Myself and 2 friends had driven from Laredo, Texas to Baton Rouge in LA one night in my Ford van. It was about 2 a.m. There is a particularly long and dark section of highway just outside Laredo. No buildings, towns, or lights for about 50 miles. I was in the right lane coming up on a truck and pulled out into the left passing lane. As I was slowly overtaking this long truck, my peripheral vision caught a sudden movement of this big truck towards the right shoulder. I saw the truck was swerving to avoid hitting a person dressed in all white face, whose arms were folded across the chest and eyes, were closed as they walked across the highway. I swerved to the left and barely missed this ghostly-looking person with my passenger mirror. I can still remember seeing that the eyes were closed, but that's how close we came to hitting this person. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, and if you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit subscribe. Please let me know in the comments down below if you enjoy this kind of format and this kind of video where I just read out some comments from a really interesting AskReddit thread. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next week.